Hello, and welcome to Cheating Death by PowerPoint. My name is Laura Foley, Creative Director at Laura M. Foley Design. I've been helping my clients to cheat death by PowerPoint for over 20 years, and I'm here to teach you some basic PowerPoint design principles that will improve your presentations and help you to cheat death by PowerPoint. This is Lesson 1, Analyze and Synthesize. We're going to talk about slides that have too much text on them. We'll find out why too much information is a bad idea, and we'll explore ways to solve the problem. I think we can all agree that many PowerPoint slides have too much text on them. In the worst case scenario, the presenter reads the slide like a script, word for word, as you can see is being done here. Not only is that painful to watch, but it really insults the intelligence of the audience, and it's a big waste of everyone's time. If you're going to be that detailed, then you might as well save everyone the trouble of getting together and just distribute the deck electronically. No, the reason we have live meetings and presentations is so that we can make a connection with the audience, and we aren't going to do that by reading slides. So some people think that you should make a bulleted list on your slide. That way, you cover the highlights of your presentation. And PowerPoint is designed to make bulleted lists easy to create. In fact, it's the default. But bulletizing your main speaking points isn't the answer. It's almost like PowerPoint wants you to fail by setting up this outline sort of structure. Slides with a title, subtitle, bullet points, and any number of subcategories have no place in front of an audience. This kind of elaborate nesting structure is what goes into your outline when you are first developing your presentation. It's like showing your notes to the audience as the final product, which makes you look unprepared, or worse, like you don't know your subject matter. Ideally, you want your slides to introduce a concept which you as the presenter elaborate upon. All of the subcategories become your script for the presentation. Here's an example of a typical PowerPoint slide that has too much text. You can see that there's a title, a subtitle, main bullet points, subcategory level 1, and subcategory level 2. I'll bet that right now you're trying to read the slide while you're listening to me. I'm not talking about what exactly is on the slide, so there's a disconnect between what you see and what you hear. I'm making you work way too hard to understand my main message. To solve this problem, people often animate text one bullet at a time, creating a build. So let's animate this slide to see if it helps. Reducing the amount of text on your slides. Design better slides by decreasing the number of words. PowerPoint slides have too much text. You force your audience to read. If your audience is reading, then they're not listening to you. If they could just read your presentation, then having a face-to-face meeting is a waste of time. Now, I'm not going to torture you by animating the rest of the text, so I'll just bring it up. The point is, this kind of slide has no place in front of your audience. It's way too detailed, and in fact, it reads like a script. The slow reveal doesn't solve the original problem that the slide has way too much text on it. So how do we solve the problem? We do it with a method called Analyze and Synthesize. The first step is to analyze each slide to determine the most important parts of the message. Also at this stage, you would figure out if you need to space your information out to more than one slide so that each slide focuses on a single message or part of the main message. After you have determined the main messages, it's time to synthesize them into a new, more concise whole. So here we have the original slide. We actually have 4 main messages we're working with here, so we're definitely going to have to split this slide up into multiple parts. When we analyze the slide, the first thing we notice is that the main message about the Analyze and Synthesize method is near the bottom of the slide. Another important point about adding pictures to a slide is actually the last bullet point. Because these two things will drive the redesign of the slide, we need to combine them into the first message. Message number 2 is that by reducing the amount of text on your slides, you increase understanding. Message 3 is that we shouldn't force our audience to read. I haven't included the bullet point above the highlighted text because we've already established that many PowerPoint slides have too much text. Message 4 is that too much text is confusing. So now that we have broken the message of this slide down into 4 parts, we need to create at least 4 slides. In fact, we'll probably create more than just 4 slides. Now, if you're thinking ahead to any text-heavy decks you've done and you're frantically doing the math in your head, you're probably realizing that after you analyze your slides, the size of your deck is going to increase a lot, and you're right. But with added animation and transitions, the additional slides will fit seamlessly into the deck and won't necessarily make your presentation longer. In fact, it will make it better. In a January 2011 Wall Street Journal article, Nancy Duarte of Duarte Design said that she's delivered 30-minute presentations that use 150 slides. By animating your slides, you create a theatrical experience and a more dynamic presentation. Let's get started on redesigning this slide. First, I'll make a summary slide to introduce the concept of analyze and synthesize. Then I'll add 2 more slides to further explain what I mean. This title slide introduces the concept of analyze and synthesize and would appear briefly as I begin to talk about it. Then we move on to the next slides, which break the concept of the 2 parts into 2 slides. So to review, the first step is to analyze each slide to determine the most important parts of the message, and you figure out if you need to create more slides to make your message more clear. Once you've determined your main messages, it's time to distill them down into new, more concise slides. People say that a picture's worth 1,000 words, so let images convey the main messages of your presentation. If you can reinforce what you say with pictures, you'll increase the audience's retention of your message. Instead of using wordy explanations as you see here, sometimes it's just better to use a picture. What I did on those previous 2 slides is to combine the messages of analyze and synthesize and use more pictures. Now, let's continue on to message 2. By reducing the amount of text on your slides, you increase understanding. We'll delete the rest of the text on this slide. This leaves the title and subtitle. Now, the subtitle states the main message in a better way than the title, so let's get rid of the title. Now we're left with the main message of the slide. Let's make the text bigger and bolder and center it on the slide. We're almost there, but let's edit this a little bit more. That's better. It's a lot less wordy and it gets right to the point. Now message number 3. Forcing your audience to read is a bad idea. Let's take a dense block of text and see if we can summarize the most important parts. Imagine somebody pausing for a minute or 2 in the middle of a presentation to give the audience a chance to read a text-heavy slide like this one. He'd lose his momentum, and the fast readers would have to wait for the slow readers to catch up. Remember, we don't want our audience to have to work. So, let's summarize. Here you get the gist of the message without having to read a lot of words. Message 4 is that too much text is confusing. It's similar to the previous message of forcing the audience to read, but it's a little different because it talks about obscuring the main points of your message. I think that this slide illustrates this problem pretty well, but let me give you another example that you might encounter in a business presentation. This slide was part of a presentation that was meant to persuade voters at town meeting to approve the purchase of 2 new trucks. It presents a thorough analysis and includes lots of data. This means that there's too much information on this slide. While this approach is all right for a printed document, it's too much to ask an audience to read the whole slide, focus on what the presenter is saying, and determine what they're supposed to do, all at the same time. The primary goal of this presentation was to persuade voters to approve the purchase of the 2 trucks. So let's create a title slide that outlines that goal and the reasoning behind it. We'll focus on the 6-wheel dump truck and create the new title slide. Now, in this new title slide, we've included a picture of the truck the town wanted to replace. It's easy to see how rusty and unused the truck is. The title of the show, 2.5 Override Questions, Why We Need New Trucks, is the main message of the presentation. Since this was the title slide, it was displayed as the audience filled the room, giving them time to absorb the information. So, to sum up, when you analyze and synthesize, use pictures to illustrate your main points, use less text, don't make your audience read, and focus on your message, your presentations will have more impact. This has been Cheating Death by PowerPoint, Analyze and Synthesize. My name is Laura Foley, Creative Director at Laura M. Foley Design.